On this Saturday night, starvation crisis. While Israel allows airdrops of food and supplies into Gaza, aid organizations sound the alarm that it's not enough, and political pressure builds on Canada and the UK to recognize a Palestinian state. Clashes on the Thailand-Cambodia border now in their third day. How President Trump is stepping in to end the fighting. Plus, the Blue Jays soar to new heights. For the first time in more than 30 years, Toronto is the best team in baseball. And signs of life.
None of this was there.
A year after the devastating fires, wildlife and other nature return to Jasper, Alberta.
Global National. Reporting tonight, Anthony Robart.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. Israel says it has resumed aid airdrops into Gaza and plans to open humanitarian corridors for UN convoys amid growing international pressure. Now, the IDF releasing these images tonight of what it says are pallets full of flour, sugar, and canned food set for delivery. It also repeated its claims that no starvation exists in the territory. But aid agencies say mass starvation is spreading, while hundreds of Palestinians have also been killed while trying to reach the limited aid that has made its way in. Touria Izri reports on the condemnation over what is being described as a hunger crisis reaching new levels of desperation.
Gazans gathered in hopes of receiving limited shipments of flour when witnesses say they came under fire. The Hamas-run health ministry says multiple Palestinians died Saturday trying to get aid, while others have died waiting for it to arrive. This father says he lost his baby boy to severe malnutrition. This woman fears she'll lose her son. Mohammed is 18 months old and needs the basics, food and medicine. More than 100 aid organizations and human rights groups have warned of mass starvation and are urging Israel to lift restrictions on aid.
In Gaza today, there is no famine caused by Israel. There is, however, a man-made shortage engineered by Hamas.
The controversial Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, backed by the U.S. and Israel, has faced criticism for the pace of delivery and deadly violence at distribution sites. The organization took over after Israel accused Hamas of diverting United Nations assistance. But a New York Times report is casting doubt on that, finding no proof Hamas routinely stole UN aid. Prime Minister Mark Carney is urging Israel to allow international organizations to take over, while the UK is vowing to begin its own aid airdrops into Gaza.
And I know the British people are sickened by what is happening.
But neither is going as far as French President Emmanuel Macron, who's vowing to recognize a Palestinian state in September. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says that amounts to rewarding terrorism. But two Liberal backbenchers from the Greater Toronto area want Carney to follow in Macron's footsteps.
I absolutely would have liked for Canada to be on and to be in that direction. But I still believe that that is very much where we're trending.
So far, Carney has shown no signs he's willing to do that. Touria Izri, Global News, Montreal.
Anger over the war in Gaza followed Donald Trump to Scotland this weekend as protesters took to the streets while the U.S. president golfed. Demonstrators condemned his stance on Gaza, immigration, and his ties to Jeffrey Epstein. Some held signs demanding the release of the so-called Epstein files. Others called his presence in Britain an insult. Trump brushed off the criticism and insisted his focus is on trade as he prepares to meet European leaders. President Trump also now seems to be pushing for a peace deal between Thailand and Cambodia after their long-standing border dispute reached a boiling point this week. The past few days have seen tit-for-tat military strikes along contested areas that both countries claim as their own. And now there are fears it could escalate into a full-blown war. Candace Cole reports on the deadly armed clashes and the push from Washington to broker peace.
After days of relentless fighting between Thailand and Cambodia, U.S. President Donald Trump took to Truth Social Saturday, saying that he's had, quote, good talks with both countries' leaders, which are also trade partners with the U.S. His latest in a series of posts on the conflict said both parties are looking for an immediate ceasefire and peace. They are also looking to get back to the trading table with the United States, which we think is inappropriate to do until such time as the fighting stops. They have agreed to immediately meet and quickly work out a ceasefire and ultimately peace. Both Thailand and Cambodia have blamed each other for renewing this latest conflict, following a violent clash between Thai and Cambodian soldiers in May at a disputed border area that left a Cambodian soldier dead. Since the fighting began Thursday, nearly 170,000 people have been forced to leave their homes on both sides of the border in what's now being called the worst fighting in over a decade. This mother, forced to evacuate her home in Thailand, says the fighting is much more severe and intense this time compared to 2011. The Thai-Cambodian conflict centers around an 800-kilometer stretch of land that France drew up as a border between the two kingdoms back in 1907. This Thai farm worker who lives near the border lost his entire family when an artillery shell slammed into the gas station they stopped at as they were headed to safer ground. He says Cambodia's aimless firing of heavy arms into civilian areas is not just war, it's murder. With both countries claiming to act in self-defense, the international community is now facing mounting pressure to intervene. The UN Security Council now urging the Association of Southeast Asian Nations to mediate before the fighting escalates further. Candace Cole, Global News, Washington.
Another deadly day in the war in Ukraine as both sides traded drone strikes overnight. Ukrainian officials say 3 people were killed after Russia fired more than 200 drones and 30 missiles, most targeting the province around the city of Dnipro. Meanwhile, officials say 2 people died in the Russian city of Rostov from a Ukrainian strike. In Montreal, a church has been fined $2,500 for hosting a controversial concert Friday night. Christian singer and pro-Trump activist Sean Foyt performed despite warnings that the venue had no permit. Tensions flared as protesters surrounded the entrance, chanting anti-Trump slogans while dozens of police officers formed a perimeter. 1 person was arrested. City officials say this event goes against Montreal's values of inclusion and respect. Foyt has had to find new venues for several of his shows during a cross-Canada tour as he's had multiple permits pulled. And smoke from the Prairie wildfires drifted over Montreal today, prompting an air quality warning. A heat warning was also issued for the city. Now, authorities warned people to stay indoors because of increased health risks. Dan Spector reports.
It's an unwelcome sight that's quickly becoming a summer staple. Wildfire smoke from thousands of kilometers away blanketing the Montreal skyline.
It's kind of sad, to be honest, where the direction we're going with our planet.
On Saturday morning, Swiss company IQ Air ranked Montreal as having the worst air quality in the entire world. Environment Canada issued an air quality warning citing smoke from the Prairie wildfires, advising people to limit time outdoors and reschedule or cancel outdoor sports and activities. Mel Ketch had planned a picnic with his kids, but elected to postpone it.
So hard to line up a nice weather where you have time off with your family and then all of a sudden you got to cancel all your plans, you know?
On top of the choking smoke, authorities also issued a heat warning with temperatures climbing into the mid-30s. The smoke and heat combo has become a regular occurrence in the summer months. It's a duo that can be extra dangerous.
The evidence that we have so far shows that the combined effect of heat exposure and wildfire smoke actually significantly raises the health risk.
Healthy people don't have as much to worry about, but Baumgartner says to monitor your symptoms and head inside to a cool place if you're having trouble breathing or feeling overheated.
These aren't the days to, tough it out and really go for that long run or that really long bike ride.
Many Montrealers made the choice to go ahead with activities in spite of the conditions.
What are you going to do? You got to keep living, right?
It won't stop me from doing nothing.
I'm still going on that yacht.
Baumgartner thinks checking air quality in the summer is becoming as routine as checking if it'll rain, and that public health officials will need to update messaging to factor in the combined risk of the heat and the smoke.
It falls on us in public health to really do a better job of, detailing both some of the overlapping symptoms and making sure that we're giving folks coherent protective steps to take.
The air quality is forecast to gradually improve and should be back to moderate by the time the new week begins. The heat warning will stick around until Tuesday. Dan Spector, Global News, Montreal.
An Ontario family is suing an Oakville hospital and its staff over the sudden death of their 16-year-old son last year. They want to raise awareness about how they believe not all hospital systems are set up to properly care for patients in an emergency. Katherine Ward speaks with the family about what happened.
Yeah, it's Coronation Park, I think.
16 years old, a son, an older brother, and loyal friend. Finlay Werken's life is now a collection of memories closely guarded by his parents.
I still hear his laughter. We do what we can to keep his memory alive, but we miss him so much.
In early February of 2024, a migraine kept Finlay home from school, but his condition got worse.
He was crying out in pain a lot. He didn't know what was going on, but he knew it was not normal. So I drove as fast as I could.
Hazel took her son to Oakville Trafalgar Memorial Hospital just outside of Toronto. She says he would not see a doctor for hours despite telling the nurses Finlay was not doing well.
When I went up at 3 in the morning, they said, well, we only have one doctor, but there's another one coming in at 4. I don't know where that one doctor was.
Finlay was triaged at almost exactly 10 o'clock, and he wasn't actually seen by a physician until 6:22 in the morning.
According to the statement of claim about what happened that morning, the doctor said Finlay was experiencing sepsis pneumonia with hypoxia, and he was at high risk for acute deterioration. His oxygen levels, which hospital records show had been dropping throughout the night, were a concern.
I remember just saying to Finlay, Finlay, we got to get, we're looking at this screen that's got his oxygen saturation. I'm like, we have to get it up. And his breathing was so shallow by this point. And he said, I can't do deep breaths. It hurts too much. I said, you gotta try.
Finlay eventually needed to be intubated and also suffered a cardiac arrest. Finlay was taken to Sick Kids Hospital in Toronto, but it was too late, as he was then in hypotensive shock.
We had to make the decision to take Finlay off life support.
Or risk that the situation would escalate even more and he would wake up and die in a lot of pain.
After Finlay died, hospital staff did meet with the family to review what happened. In a written statement, officials said, like many hospitals, we are seeing more patients presenting with increasingly complex health conditions and comorbidities. This places significant demand on our emergency departments, patient flow, bed availability, and the patient experience. The family has since launched a lawsuit alleging in part the healthcare team failed to monitor Finlay, have appropriate protocols in place for his treatment, or inform the family of the true nature of his condition.
The experts are quite clear and unequivocal that this was a treatable condition, and had he been treated promptly, there is no doubt in my mind that he would still be here today. He was triaged as a second highest level in triage, and the guidelines say that 95% of the time they should be seen within 15 minutes.
The hospital says they are making changes to track data more closely, refining their on-call coverage criteria protocols, and implementing other tools and working groups to improve patient flow and communication. But the family wants more awareness so something like this never happens again.
But we feel that we have been let down and we cannot trust the medical system as it is right now.
Katherine Ward, Global News.
The Blue Jays take flight. Coming up, Toronto takes the top spot in Major League Baseball for the first time in decades. Well, how about this? The Blue Jays are now the hottest team in baseball. Toronto won its 62nd game of the year Friday against the Detroit Tigers, putting them at the top of the MLB standings. It's the first time the Jays have led the league this late in the season since 1992. Not a bad year, because that is when, if you recall, they won their first World Series. Meantime, in the United States, a plane had to make a dramatic dive to avoid a midair collision with another aircraft. This happened on a Southwest Airlines flight from Burbank, California to Las Vegas on Friday. Southwest says their pilots got 2 alerts that they could soon collide with another plane. The pilots climbed, then quickly dropped more than 140 meters.
I was terrified. I thought this was it. I thought, this is how I go out. There was this large drop. I want to say it lasted for 8 to 10 seconds. Just complete free fall, was like out of my seat, body out of my seat. People were screaming. Just felt like pandemonium.
The airline says the flight landed in Las Vegas uneventfully. 2 flight attendants were treated for injuries. Nobody else was hurt. Ahead, body armor on the boats. We'll take you on the water to see how enforcement is being stepped up against unauthorized fishing on the East Coast. Fisheries officers in the Maritimes are now suiting up with body armor and cameras, a visible sign of growing tension in Canada's lobster fishery. Now, from Cape Breton to southwest Nova Scotia, officers say the risks are rising, and so is the need for protection. Heidi Petrachik went on patrol with DFO officers to see the new gear in action.
This new body armor is now standard for fisheries conservation officers in the Maritimes.
Our job as fishery officers is there is an inherent danger to that. And I've been in for 16 years, and I've seen a big change in the fishery over that period of time.
We would just double tap, and then it would go red. And then
body-worn cameras also part of their equipment.
The body-worn camera, I think, is a really big plus with us. You know, it kind of tells our side of the story.
Both the result of an East Coast lobster fishery that's changed.
355 status update for 518.
Doug Landry and Brittany Chasson are 2 of 550 DFO officers in Canada. Their rounds in Cape Breton start at the wharves.
Hop on board there, guys.
Chasson checks the captain's paperwork as Landry ensures the lobsters are legal size.
If my gauge were to go over the end of the carapace at the same time, then it's undersized.
They inspect 3 vessels and find no violations.
Have a good season, guys.
Good inspection. I thought it was very thorough. They looked over everything pretty well.
That's good. Good to see them on the wharf. Yeah, absolutely.
This was a welcome reception. The fishery has actually been most tense on the opposite side of the province. Industry groups say illegal fishing has been rampant in southwest Nova Scotia, with the RCMP claiming organized crime has become involved. Last year, dozens of DFO officers refused to work over threats of violence. The federal government ordered the DFO better equip frontline workers.
Our policies are being updated. We've gotten some new training for the officers, some new equipment, especially body-worn camera, how to deal with drugs, firearms, long arms.
You know, at the end of the day, after you finish your shift, everybody wants to go home.
The new reality for this job now, both on land and at sea. Heidi Petrachik, Global News, Sydney, Nova Scotia.
Next, rising from the ashes. A year after the horrific fires, nature is slowly returning to Jasper, Alberta.
This painting behind me is a self-portrait.
Artist Greg Deagle was among 10 Jasper, Alberta residents tasked with creating original artwork or writings to commemorate this week's 1-year anniversary of the devastating wildfire. On Friday, their work was put on display at the Jasper Art Gallery. Now, new numbers from the Insurance Bureau of Canada suggest the losses from last summer's Jasper wildfire are now close to $1.3 billion. 358 homes and businesses were destroyed. Now, Jasper's stunning landscape was also charred, but as Jasmine King reports, there are signs of regrowth amid the ashes.
The landscape in Jasper National Park is picturesque. The mountains, forest, and rivers, all a sight to see for visitors and locals. However, since the wildfire, this landscape has changed dramatically. Knocked down trees line the forest, and mountains look bare. Locals aren't ignoring what happened, but it's not all they see.
When you start seeing past the burnt trees, there is so much life.
Estelle Blanchet is the owner of Jasper Food Tours. This summer, she started offering a new tour, one that focuses on the natural process of wildfire and the regrowth.
Watching it happening live in real time is fascinating. We're learning every day.
Hikers go on a 4-kilometer tour of the impacted area, where they can see wildflowers, mushrooms, and trees sprouting.
It was just black dirt. That was in the fall last year. So none of this was there.
While some are viewing the changes from the trails, others see it from hundreds of feet above, heading up on the Jasper Skytram.
That is the impact from last year's wildfire we had in 2024 here in Jasper, you can see.
A windy day on the peak, a reminder of the conditions that expanded the massive wildfire.
The 3 fires that started were being pushed by 85-kilometer-an-hour winds. So they grew quite rapidly because we were very dry.
The fire burned 5% of the park's forested land. Parks Canada notes wildfires allow for ecosystem renewal, allowing certain species to thrive and grow.
You start to see a different suite of birds using the landscape, and you see another different suite of animals and species that like the edge of where fire meets green.
While Parks Canada adapts to this new landscape, they're aware others are doing the same, but say there is also a unique opportunity out there.
Now it's like the blanket has been pulled back and you get to see all of the special little nooks and crannies that are part of the landscape, something that nobody has seen in the last century.
Signs of change and recovery in the forests, perhaps symbolic of the entire community here.
We always bounce back, and we're all sort of regrowing together.
Jasmine King, Global News.
And that's Global National for this Saturday night. I'm Anthony Robart. Tonight's Your Canada showcases Argentia, Newfoundland and Labrador, Guelph, Ontario, and a pirate statue in Sydney, British Columbia. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great night.